Now I think we're going to be moving into some very rare white gold pieces. Go ahead, Bryan.
So I have 4 watches here: a Meadowbrook, an Oakmont, a Pinehurst, and a Flintridge. I think I mentioned in one of the earlier segments we did that Hamilton began naming their watches after country clubs, and then again later started after people, famous aviators, famous explorers, generals. So this first watch, the Meadowbrook, I mentioned in the previous segment, was named after a country club in Long Island, New York. Now this watch was also a presentation watch from the Cadillac Motor Car Company.
Yeah.
So Hamilton, again, even as early back as the 1920s, was considered to be the very top watch in America. So if a company wanted to present a special award to an employee for long service, it was usually a Hamilton. And these were acid etched at the factory. They're not engraved, so they had a special process where they would do some sort of printing of the name and the company on the back, and then they would apply acid, and the acid would etch all the logo and the lettering into the case back. And they came from the factory this way. Of course, they cost extra to do this.
Do you consider the engraving a higher quality ending result than by hand even? Or?
Yes, yeah. It's unbelievably consistent. Every letter is exactly the same depth. And they probably had the top engravers to do the plate, to do the acid etching. And the cool thing about early Hamiltons is we have production figures. We know exactly how many of these were made. We know what years they were made. I think there were about 200 of these presented for Cadillac.
Wow.
And even though some people say, well, an engraved watch is worth less because it's got somebody's name on it, the fact that we know exactly how many were made and the exact years they were made makes them much more collectible to Hamilton aficionados than just the regular Meadowbrook.
I think it's also adding something that it is a notable company in the U.S. I mean, it's anytime you can put it, especially a car company. I don't know if they did custom dials. I'm not familiar.
Sometimes they did, sure.
But in the Swiss world, for example, that does increase the value of a watch. So I would think in that case it would help it also.
This next watch is an Oakmont. Again, this watch was named after a country club, in this case, the Oakmont Country Club in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
This watch, similar to the Cadillac watch, was presented by Packard in 1933.
Crazy.
Again, with an acid etched case back done at the Hamilton factory in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And again, we know exactly how many of these were produced. There were 199 of them.
Wow. Why 199?
That's how many they chose to give out in 1933. You know, this watch was $100 in 1933.
Wow.
The worst year of the Great Depression, and Packard was still doing well enough that they felt that they could afford a $100 watch, 100 of them, 200 of them, to give to employees.
Yeah.
In 1933.
Have you noticed with any of the Packard watches doing well via auction or whatever, that there is people that search out stuff like this? For example, like something from Packard after like the one sells for hundreds of thousands at auction.
Sure, and there seems to be some crossover with the vintage car people, the Cadillac and the Packard watches.
Cool.
Yeah. Hamilton also did watches for Oldsmobile and for Studebaker.
Oh, I've heard of the Studebaker.
Yeah.
It's not the only one.
Yeah.
I think you have all the other rare stuff.
I did. I sure did. The next watch is a Pinehurst, which is named for the Pinehurst Country Club in North Carolina. Again, another golf club. Hamilton really was looking to an affluent market. So they were marketing watches that would be known or favored by people who had money. People who were members of country clubs. So these are the people Hamilton was marketing their watches to. And by and large, Hamilton watches were much more expensive than Elgin watches, Bulova, Gruen in Illinois. So they were really looking to a wealthier market.
One question on the country club aspect. Did they ever give these away for like a PGA champion, or I guess it was roughly around that time? So
I haven't seen it one specifically for the PGA, but I see them all the time for golf tournaments.
Okay.
All the time.
I guess it's a
in the
marketing
20s and 30s, right? Yeah.
Give away a free watch and
win the tournament, get
all
a
that.
gold Hamilton as being the winner of the watch. Exactly.
Yeah.
There were, I can't remember the production numbers on the Pinehurst, but it's maybe 300 or 400 in white and maybe a couple hundred in yellow. It's a very rare watch.
And you mentioned something about that watch.
It's my favorite watch of all the watches I have.
No price to take it, huh?
No price to take it. And I've had several of them. This one is unusually nice. The case is just razor sharp.
Yeah.
Everywhere. You see them a lot of times, the design starts to get worn, the corners get a little soft, but this one is just razor sharp.
You mentioned that the finish was still on the...
Right. The center case body has a frosted kind of matte satin finish, whereas the bezel and the case back are polished. And that was very typical. You see watches, older watches nowadays, they've almost all been polished everywhere. But most of these watches came with 2 or 3 different types of finishes on the case when they were brand new. And so it's very unusual to find a watch that's, in this case, almost 95 years old, that still has all of its original finishes.
Not being over polished.
Yeah, you wonder about some guy spent $90 to $100 on this watch, wore it a few times, and then never wore it again.
Yeah.
And it's been sitting for 90 years somewhere, never having been worn more than, a month at the most maybe. You wonder why did he wear it any more than that?
With the ones that are polished, also you almost wish you could go back and tell them,
exactly.
Don't do it.
Right.
Leave it alone.
That's right. So this next watch is a Flintridge. It's 14 karat white gold. It was also made in yellow gold. And so the appeal of this watch, according to Hamilton's advertising, was this was an ideal watch if you played polo. Again, an affluent sport aiming to capture an affluent market. So this watch has a covered bezel that there is a button on the upper right lug. So when you want to tell the time, you push the button. It flips open the lid so you can see what the time is.
What is that considered, the lid itself? Is it like a shutter?
It's a hunting case. So similar to it's a hunting case. Yeah. So, if you could afford to play polo and you needed a solid gold watch to wear while you're playing polo, then the Hamilton Flintridge was the watch for you.
Would it really take a hit, you think, or is it the white gold aspect would just dent immediately?
No, I haven't seen any really that have been dented up, so I don't know if people really wore them while they're playing polo.
Probably not.
Probably not. The protection would be from maybe if the guy fell off the horse or something or got hit with one of the poles or whatever. But, I see them, they have wear, people wore them, but I've never seen one that's been really like it was dropped or hit in athletic competition before.
And what is the mechanism inside? Is there?
It's a spring. It's a series of springs. That's right. It's the bars. The button is held in place with a spring, and there's a spring that pushes on that and pops it open. As a practical matter, when you're wearing it, it's fairly inconvenient.
It looks like it.
Kind of hard to get it to flip open enough to really see the time. I don't wear this watch very often because it is
not
inconvenient. It's not very practical. It sure is cool though.
And you mentioned color-wise, there was how many in green, how many in white?
I think there's 1 or 2 known in green. White, there's probably 400 or 500 in white and probably 300 or 400 in yellow. Okay. So all told, probably under 1,000.
The green, you've seen one, or?
Have not seen a green.
Yeah. You know where one is?
No.
Okay.
Interesting. Hamilton, they had an entire dealer network, and they would send out letters every couple of months to their dealers saying, "Hey, we're bringing out this new watch. We're going to send you samples. We've tested it in small areas, and it's selling like hotcakes." Well, they sent out one of these letters about the Flintridge saying that they had sold a bunch and they were sold out. But yet, we know they made less than 1,000 of them. So that letter was probably a little optimistic.
Yeah. Deceptive advertising.
A little bit, yeah. A little sales puffing.
Yeah.
But it was the Depression, so they were doing anything to kind of try to boost their sales. This watch is from 1930.
And the Depression, that's why they switched to some of the gold-filled stuff, kind of.
Later in the Depression, Hamilton, before the Depression, Hamilton watches were always either solid gold, sterling silver, or 14 karat gold fill. They never made a base metal case, or a 10 karat gold fill case, or a rolled gold plate case. Starting in 1934, they started making 10 karat gold fill cases. Yeah. Just so they could get a watch priced under $40.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Because the Flintridge with the 19 jewel movement was $150.
Yeah.
In 1930.
Even at the $40 price point back then, I mean, the people buying this are going to be at minimum middle class kind of upper middle class.
Correct. You know, Elgin and Bull at the time, when Hamilton was selling their minimum $40 watch, there were Elgins that were $12.
Yeah.
There were Bulvas that were $15. So
Yeah.
even Hamilton's cheapest watch was more than double what some of the other competitors' prices were.
Yeah, that's crazy. Really a premium product.
Yeah.